did my best to hide my feelings when I saw Daniel hugging Josie, my older sister. Josie was older than me by a year and 3 months, so we were usually together. She was a year ahead of me in college, but we went to the same school. I've had a huge crush on Daniel for 3 weeks now. I tried to move close to him and get to know him, but he would treat me like he wanted nothing to do with me. And now, he was hugging my sister. Judging by how tightly they were hugging, I knew they were more than friends. I sighed as I walked to my class. Everyone on campus usually got shocked when they discovered Josie and I were sisters. "She's so pretty," they would gush, implying that I was the ugly one. It hurt each time I noticed people were comparing Josie and me. I knew I always fell short of their standards. I was chubby and short, barely above 5 feet, whereas Josie was tall with slender limbs. Her dark hair always looked like it was shining, next to my nest of mousy brown hair. I had never had a boyfriend, but Josie, on the other hand, went through boys like it was her favorite pastime. She was notorious for breaking hearts. She dated guys and dumped them after getting bored with them. It made me furious every time. Josie was so self-absorbed and never seemed to care what others felt. As I walked past Josie and Daniel, I saw Aiden, Josie's ex. His fists were clenched tight and he looked like he was vibrating. He caught me staring and took a deep breath, closing his eyes. I merely shrugged and continued to walk. Aiden fell into step with me, and I looked at him, wondering why he was bothering me. I remembered when he was with Josie. She treated him like her servant. Aiden was always doing something for her. He would buy her gifts, surprise her with packages, and hung on her every word. "Your sister fucked me up pretty bad," Aiden said, shoving his hands into his jean pockets. I made a non-committal sound and hoped it was enough to get him away. He looked at me and said, "You're actually kind of pretty. Must suck to be in your sister's shadow." This time, I couldn't help but talk. "It makes me so furious." Aiden nodded like he understood perfectly, and then his eyes lit up. "How about we get back at her?" I frowned and asked him what he meant. Before he could reply, I saw that my class was starting. I promised I'd see him after my class, and he got my number. Aiden's words were all I could think about in class. If I understood correctly, he wanted us to go against Josie, some sort of revenge. The thought made me smile. It would serve her right. I ignored the tiny voice in my head telling me that I was being a horrible person. I saw Aiden after my class and suggested we go to a quiet place to talk. We went to a cafeteria and ordered some coffee. After I took a long pull from my coffee, I looked at Aiden and told him to proceed. "I've been thinking. Josie needs someone to show her her place. She needs to realize that she can't play with people and get away with it." I wanted to stand up and clap. He blushed when I told him it was a brilliant idea. "How do we go about it?" Aiden and I started to think of the perfect way to get to Josie. An idea lit up in my head. "You know, she's with Daniel now. I'm pretty sure that they'll be hooking up soon. I can set up a cam in her room that will capture everything. That's sure to ruin her reputation." Aiden grinned at me and applauded me. One Friday night, I greeted her roommate and asked her for Josie's whereabouts. She told me Josie was coming over in an hour. She had to leave to read overnight, and I assured her that I'd lock the door. I put up the camera and made sure it was hidden enough. It was pointing towards the direction of Josie's bed. I rushed out of the room and went to sleep with a huge smile on my face. The next day, I called Josie and told her I wanted to see her. I went to her room and saw that she was still in bed, probably tired after she and Daniel had sex. I hung around in her room and pretended to be interested in why she looked so tired. As she went out of the room, I picked up the camera, but in the process managed to drop off a book which was placed on a shelf. Josie turned and I froze. "You fucking bitch! What do you think you're doing?" She lunged at me and I ran. Josie chased me while running short of breath. "Do not upload it!" was the last of what I heard from her. Scared that she might be after me, I quickly transferred the video from the camera to my laptop and uploaded it to YouTube. As the clip was processing, I shared the link with our common friends. "What the hell did you do?" Josie shouted as she barged into my room. She threw me off the chair and played the video. Just then, Aiden came in with a horrified expression on his face. My jaw dropped as the clip played. "You and your tiny Willie out of my room now!" Josie shouts in the clip. Apparently, Daniel wasn't able to get his thing going last night, and my sister had thrown him out of the room. That was the only exciting part. Josie had then turned off the lights and slept. "Are you fucking out of your mind?" Josie screamed. News spread around really fast. Soon enough, everyone was talking about it. Aiden knew that their plan had gone horribly wrong and couldn't wipe the expression on his face. Just then, Daniel stormed into the room. "You bitch!" As Josie was trying to explain that she knew nothing about the video, I pointed at Aiden and said, "It was him! He did all this!" He looked like he was about to dump all the shit on Josie, and I wasn't going to let that happen. I watched as Aiden looked at me with a look of betrayal, but I stood my ground. Josie nodded in agreement and Daniel tackled Aiden to the floor. They started hitting each other like madmen, with Daniel managing to stay on top. He punched Aiden square in the face. Josie and I were screaming for them to stop, but they didn't seem to hear us. Daniel was visibly enraged and Aiden was no match for him. Aiden covered his face with his arms, unable to dislodge Daniel. By the time the security came to break up the fight, Aiden had a split lip, a black eye, and bruised ribs. Josie and I played victims and the council believed us. Daniel and Aiden got punished for fighting in the dorms. Even though Josie was mad at me for trying to set her up, she forgave me after I protected her and we became closer than before.
As I ran out of Grab and Bite, the fast food shop where I worked as a waitress, that evening the sky rumbled a warning. I'd gotten beaten by the rain the previous day and I was not going to allow that to happen again. Not if I could help it. It was just like every other day with blaring horns and people bustling down the sidewalks trying to beat the rain. I crossed the road and jumped into the first cab I saw and hoped I got home before the downpour. "Hello, Anne. Your sister was involved in an accident." She sounded more like she was asking rather than telling me. She sniffed and continued, "I'm now in the hospital with her, City General." Our mother had always been a quiet woman. She became even quieter when our father died of prostate cancer. It was during my sister's third year of college, before Allison graduated and landed that high-paying job, before she started living a lifestyle that was the exact opposite of what we grew up talking about. "I'll join you soon," I said, ditching my last search for keys and heading towards the stairs. There was a time when I would have been the first person to be called. Even though I was older by 21 months, people thought that we were twins. My sister and I did everything together. It was just us two that our parents had. We knew everything about each other, and we talked about everything. Allison had always been the smart one and the outgoing one. Since we were young, she excelled in her academics, and we were all proud of her. I was proud of her. I was never too interested in books, and when Allison asked me what I wanted to become, because she had decided what she wanted to become, an accountant, I could not utter much more than that. I just want to be, and it was the truth, I just wanted to be the Anne that was not known. The girl that could just blend into any crowd and no one would notice. The girl that had no distinguishing feature. So it was not a very difficult decision to choose Allison when our parents told us in my final year in high school that they could only afford college for one of us. They were really sorry, but the debts were too much, and it proved to be the right decision because as soon as Allison graduated from college, she landed the job at the big corporation. Just at 21, she had a lot of money and she paid up the debts. She became very proud and stuffy. Every time I tried to see her, she would give me one excuse or the other. Her Instagram page was full of pictures of her in exotic places or buying something new. It made me so envious, but Allison didn't care about me at all. While Allison was in college, I realized that no matter how simple I wanted my life to be, I still had to eat, needed shelter, needed to wear things. So I did menial jobs. I started with cleaning jobs at train stations, restaurants, motels. Then I got a waitress job at a bar through a friend from high school. The pay was better, but I could not keep up with the atmosphere, so I quit. Then I started walking into every restaurant in the city until I got a space at Grab and Bite. After 4 years of working at the place, I knew everyone that came regularly, from white-collar workers trying to grab something for lunch to teenagers living out their lives. It was through this that I met Mr. Adams. He worked at a big firm down the street, and he was so nice. He was the kind of person that would start up a conversation with a stranger and really get along. Then he walked in one day with my sister at noon. I was surprised to see Allison at this end of the city. Her workplace sits at the other end of the city. In formal clothes, she looked thinner and shorter. It was the drugs, I thought within me. Smiling in her childlike manner, she said, "Hello, Anne." She then turned to Mr. Adams, trying to introduce us. "This is my sister Anne," and then to me, "This is Mr. Adams, one of our biggest clients. We just closed a deal and we decided to finalize things over lunch. And since I'm here, I actually wanted to use this opportunity to see you." "Oh, Anne and I are good friends, in fact. I've known her way before I met you," he said, waving at me. "Good afternoon, Mr. Adams. It's been a while since we saw you around," I replied. "Yeah, I had to leave for a few weeks. Work. Not wanting Ben, the manager at Grab and Bite, to see me spending too much time chatting with customers. "What do you guys want?" I asked. Then I took their orders. It was when they were done and about to leave that Mr. Adams said, "The deal with your sister went smoothly. I think I have another deal for you. Maybe it runs in the family, yeah? I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Bye, Ann." That night, I thought about what he meant by another deal. Nothing came to mind. So I just decided to wait, but he never got back to me. In fact, he stopped coming to Grab and Bite. It was months after that I saw him. It was at the kids' park where I worked part-time. He was there with his kids. At first, I tried to avoid him, but I had to know what happened. I didn't know him well enough, but I knew he was a good person. When I finally walked up to him and asked him, he apologized for not getting back to me and said, "I was thinking of opening up a place like Grab and Bite, and I thought you could manage it for me. I told your sister about it, and she said you couldn't handle such a task, that the highest you can do is be a waitress." I felt a rush of something up in my head. Whatever it was, I could not open my mouth to say anything, and I just left. Not in this world could I have thought that Allison would say such things about me, the sister I had loved and supported all of my life. When I finally confronted her about it, she cried and said between sobs, "I'm really sorry. I thought that if you got that kind of job, you wouldn't need me anymore. Things will start getting better for you, and I'd get jealous of that." Not uttering a word, I just left her sophisticated apartment, and I decided not to see her or pick up her phone calls ever again. And now that I was staring at her, laying on a bed at City General Hospital, I didn't know how to react. The doctor said she may never walk with those legs again. No one knew I was behind the accident, and they would never know.
I've always been the one person in the entire group to love the outdoors. Ever since I was a kid, I'd go hiking with my mom and dad. I don't know what did it for me. Maybe the sound of leaves brushing against one another. Maybe the difficulty of the trail and the final raise in dopamine when we would reach the top of the mountain. Anyway, I just knew that it was a place where I would find my peace and separate myself from the chaotic city life. Now I'm 32, and to be honest, I've hiked on almost all the best trails in the country. I needed something more. I needed adrenaline and the experience of new places. This is why one evening after I came home from work, I went online and stumbled across an article. It was called A Hiker's Paradise. A pretty forward title that of course caught my attention. Upon reading all of it, it talked about a jungle in Guatemala. From the words I absorbed, I was completely hooked by everything written in that piece. I knew I had to get there, and I immediately called some friends of mine. "Hey, Jenny, it's Michael," I said. And without even letting her say, "Hey," back to me, I started rambling on about this amazing jungle in Guatemala and how it would be perfect if the two of us, along with 2 other friends, would go hiking there. Sure, it sounds great," Jenny told me after the long monologue I gave. After that, I called my other friend, John. He was up for it too. It was perfect. We were set to leave in a week's time, and the days couldn't go by any slower. It seemed that every minute I spent at work, stuck in that little office, feeling like I couldn't breathe, was killing me inside slowly but surely. Fast forward, and there we were, at the airport. I sported a huge grin on my face while my friends were all tired and sleep deprived. We had a really early flight, but I didn't care about that. "So, are you guys ready? I'm so excited," I told them while sipping on a cup of coffee. "Yeah, Michael, we know," John told me while Jenny rolled her eyes. I guess my energy and good vibes were too much for them in the morning. After a 4-hour flight, we were finally there. The country looked beautiful from up in the sky, and when we landed, the people who greeted us were so kind. They took care of the transport to the hotel, and after we got settled in and ate something, we went towards the jungle. "Excuse me, sir. You will need a guide if you're planning on hiking here," one of the staff members told me while hearing about our plans. "Really? I'm kind of an expert. We're going to be just fine," I told the guy while feeling like I got this. But the man insisted on the fact that it was unfamiliar territory for me and my friends. And to be honest, I kind of saw his point. So we got assigned a guide and off we went. "So, what's the deal with this place? I found several articles online about it having one of the best hiking trails in the world. That's the reason we came out here," I asked the guide while we entered the jungle. Yes, it's quite beautiful once you reach the top," he said while continuing to walk. He didn't seem chatty at all. "So, how long will the hike be?" Jenny asked the guide. "It depends on how fast we walk, but I can tell you something certain. We will need to set camp tonight," he told her. But we were prepared, having sleeping bags, tents, and all the necessary equipment. Time went by fast, enjoying the scenery, and before we knew it, nighttime came. "So, we should set camp, right?" I asked the guide. He nodded. As the night went on, I saw that the guide was pretty nervous. He kept looking left and right. "What's wrong?" I asked him, but he didn't respond. He was too concentrated on every single sound that happened to catch his attention. "I'm bored," Jenny said. "This is what camping is all about. What do you expect?" I told her while staring at the fire we started in the middle of the camp. "I know. How about we play a little bit of hide and seek?" Jenny suggested. "Sure, we can do that," I added while looking at the guide, but he didn't seem to hear what we were doing. "Excuse me, do you want to play a game of hide and seek?" I asked the man. He looked at me as if I had said something wrong. "Oh, okay. Just be sure not to go far away from the camp," he said, and I nodded. "Let's do it, ha!" I told the others, and the game began. I was the one looking for the rest of the players. I counted to 10, and off I went. I went looking for Jenny first. "Jenny!" I would call out to her. I walked for about 5 minutes. It didn't seem so long, but I realized something. "God damn it, I'm lost," I said. Good thing I had my flashlight with me, but I couldn't see much, just trees. The area in which I was in didn't seem familiar. I started walking back, or so I thought. All of a sudden, I stepped in something. "It must be another river," I said before pointing my flashlight at the liquid in which I stepped in. I freaked out and screamed, taking a few steps back. It was blood. I followed the trail with my flashlight, and there I saw her, Jenny, pinned against the tree, her head laying right next to her. She was decapitated. I couldn't believe my eyes. I heard something in the bushes, so I started running. faster and faster until I tripped on a rock and fell face flat in some mud. I got up quickly, looked behind me while wiping the mud off my face. But when I took a look at my hand, I saw that it was red. I fell into another puddle of blood. And right next to it, there was another body of a man. His limbs were severed from his body and his eyes were open. "What the hell is going on?" I said while running in the opposite direction. As I was running away from the scene, I was looking behind me. All of a sudden, I hit something. I started screaming, seeing the thing I hit was alive. I got up and pointed my flashlight towards it. It was John. "What's happening, dude?" he asked, but I had no answer. No answer except getting out of the jungle. After about an hour or two of searching around, we found the camp. The guide was there, next to the fire, packing his bag. "What are you doing? Where are you going? What happened to Jenny?" We desperately asked him. "I told you not to go far from the camp," he said while putting his supplies into his bag. "I'll go back now. If you know what's good for you, you'll come with me." And so we did. The entire trip back was horrifying. We kept hearing noises all around us, like an animal, but it also sounded like he breathed heavily. "Please tell us, what's going on? What are these noises?" I asked the guide. "Be quiet and keep walking," he said. As soon as we were out of the jungle, we went to the police to report what happened, but they didn't seem surprised either. One police officer looked at the other and said something in their language we couldn't understand. "We're sorry about your loss. You shouldn't have gone there," the officer told us before walking away. They finally got the bodies out of the jungle in the morning and flew them back home. I don't know what happened in that jungle. They just said it was a wild animal, maybe a puma, but I'm not sure about it. The people's initial reaction seemed like they were well accustomed to what happened. That was the last time I went hiking.